up, my ninjas? I'm STRYDENT, and I am here with what you see in front of you. This is the NECA Player Select Devil May Cry Dante. I've been waiting for this thing for over 7 years. They announced this way back when, around the time that I want to say Kratos was getting his due in figure form. I was like, yeah, I'm about to get him. He never showed up. Then he finally showed up now, and I'm pretty geeked. Presentation-wise, you could see, though, he is presented to us in a similar fashion to many higher-end Japanese figures with the, kind of window and the door, cover that opens up so we can reveal the figure. And I'm impressed. I like the way he's, presented. I'm not really going to do anything with the box, it'll probably be a couple weeks before I throw it out, but I'm only really concerned with what's inside. But I have to say, I love the trend of having the Player Select figures, boxes, mimic the video game packages. But Dante himself is a thing of beauty. They did a really good job with the sculpt. They did a really good job just capturing everything that is Dante. I mean, like, from Devil May Cry 1. This is probably my favorite version of him because it doesn't really infringe on any other existing characters. I felt like the Devil May Cry 4 version was too much of a country version of Blade, and I didn't like it. But let me get into all the things that make this worth your money. So, Dante is sculpted with a very determined face. He kind of looks a little grim, in my opinion, for, who he is. But then again, when you think about it, he was pretty serious at times, more often in the first game than in any of the other games. We won't talk much about 2 because 2 is the game in which he didn't really even talk, so whatever. But I like the face. I mean, he looks mature. I wish they were a little bit lighter on the paint around his lips because it makes it look like he's wearing some, like, darker toned, lipstick. But, it works because of the way shadows fall on his face based on the hair and everything else. But the face does look like what grown Dante is supposed to look like, And, back in those days, his looks were a big thing. They actually would put him on the package, he's got rock star good looks. This kind of does have that quote-unquote rock star aesthetic. But as you move away from the face and just look at everything else, the detail is pouring out of this figure. I mean, NECA. This is what I'm talking about when I say that NECA is the last good American, action figure, manufacturer for us, for the fans. I mean, look at all the creases and folds and seams and the different textures and the washing, the different gradations going all over his pants, where areas where, shadow will fall, they kind of airbrushed and shadowed those areas better so that when the shadows fall, you get this kind of, perfect gradation. That's what I want to see in my figures, The boots, man, the straps look good. There is variation of color on the bottom of, the lower portion of the boots because of wear, so they wouldn't be perfect black. They would kind of have, like, varying degrees as you move around. On the weapons, especially the shoddy. The shoddy has such a good paint job that really feels like gunmetal. And then the wooden parts look like wood, and they feel like it. It doesn't, there's a texture to it. It's not just painted. This is what I complain about not getting with Marvel Legends. And I will forever keep pointing out Marvel Legends falling short when it comes to these things, because they're things that you're supposed to do in the figure to kind of give us the impression that the figure is not, it's not a toy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is a toy, but it's a toy that's trying to masquerade as a fully realized fictional character, if that makes any sense to you. And in order to bring the character to life, you have to catch all these things. I mean, as you get up close on Ebony and Ivory, his twin pistols, you can see screws, and you can see, line work that's been painted in. You can see the grips that are wood. They're painted and sculpted with wood, and then they also still have the screws going through, the 2 points in the center of it. This is how you do it. Now, I'm not going to say that the figure is completely perfect, but, you know, sculpt and paint wise, they did the damn thing. The paints match on the jacket, which is kind of like how they do with G.I. Joes, where the center, and they do it with Marvel Legends too, or and DC UCs, the center full jacket piece or coat piece is a softer kind of rubber. It's pliable, but it matches what's going on his sleeves, the upper part of his sleeves. I like that. It actually looks right. It looks like what the character looked like in the show or the game and in the anime. I really dig it. I was thinking that I was going to have a lot of complaints because, you know, we waited so long, so there had to have been a lot of changes. Thankfully, I was completely wrong. I mean, he just looks the part, and I have nothing to complain about. There was even the new toy smell in there. And NECA sometimes has this weird kind of freaking Sherman smell when you open it up. And you know what I'm talking about when I say Sherman. That Sherman. And the last two things I got from them, which was Gypsy Danger and this, they had like the classic kind of rubbery, plasticky smell. It didn't smell like, you know, somebody was getting high in the in the factory. But yeah, I'm impressed, man. I'm really impressed. You know, it was funny because like when I opened it, it almost made me want to go back and play the first Devil May Cry. It's just been so long that I don't think I'm gonna enjoy myself. Not anytime soon. Plus, I have a gang of games that I need to beat. But I mean, everything on this figure is just full of detail, and that's impressive considering that, you know, in this day and age, there's a lot of companies that are trying to skimp on the details. I put that clear rubber band around him because it will kind of, you know, from certain distances, you can't see it. So it looks just like in the game where he has the, you know, him and Cloud have that habit of putting a sword on their back without having a sheath to hold it. So, yeah, that's how I achieved that. And from the front, you can't really tell. Alistair looks beautiful. And it's so funny how they've just forgotten about poor old Alistair. But I like it. And I'm not going to complain. I still can't get over the detailing on the shoddy. That thing looks fresh out of Desperado. And I love it. This is one of those games that I felt, it was the reason why I got a PS2. And it was a game that I felt that was made kind of expressly for me. Because I am a huge fan of, you know, this old school gun whatever you want to call them, gun ballets or whatever. And, you know, John Woo is he's one of my favorite directors. He was for a very long time. And this game just felt like a complete homage to him. And, you know, I dug it. And I'm really digging the look and feel of this toy. So accessory-wise, he comes with Alistair, Ebony and Ivory, a shotgun. It's a sawed-off shotgun with the two blast parts, the muzzle flash parts for Ebony and Ivory, and you can also fit one of those on your shoddy. And then he comes with extra hands. They're shooting or trigger finger hands. And it's kind of necessary because he's got a lot of guns, so you want to have hands that can hold the sword properly and hands that can hold the guns properly. One thing I have to say about NECA is most of the figures that are supposed to hold guns can hold guns, and I'm happy about that, and I have no issues with that. Most of the figures that, you know, if they have a weapon of some sort, they can hold that weapon, and Dante's no different. He can do exactly what I need him to do, for the most part. I do have one issue, and the issue is with his, well, I have two issues. One of them is with his hands, but I'll get to it later. But, yeah, the weapons fit in the hands really well. You have to look out, though, for his his regular holding things hands. They're kind of stiff, I want to say. I mean, the thumb is a little bit, you know, it gives a little bit, but the rest of the fingers are kind of tough to move. So you have to warm it up a little bit and then move it. It's not hard to do. I mean, sometimes just holding it in your between your fingers is enough to warm it up to move it. Just don't force it immediately, or else you're gonna probably crack and break his hands. Um, but he looks awesome with the sword in his hand. He looks awesome with his shoddy in his hands. Um, I like it. I'm digging it. And this is the thing. I'm letting you know first that these things work, and then once you see them work, that's how you can judge if it's, quality or not. And, after I got the weapons in his hands, and I learned what I needed to do, I'm really careful about that anyway. With hands, I was like, wow, it looks awesome. So I'm not saying I like it because I like Dante. I'm saying I like that the things work the way that they're supposed to work. Because one thing I noticed, and is a lot of people that reviewed this figure reviewed it based on how much they like the character, and they didn't even go into pros and cons and shit like that, And I'm gonna go into those pros and cons. Um, I will say though that I wish that the muzzle flashes were either cast in the orange and then airbrushed on top of that, or like a clear yellowish orange kind of thing, or don't give them to us because they kind of look like dust or powders coming out of his guns, and I don't really dig that. From certain angles, in certain light, it looks awesome, but excuse me, I'm sorry I'm yawning so much, man. It's been a long week. Whew. Shit, I was trying to get this done way earlier, and I just somehow never got around to it. And then I saw everybody else put theirs out. Like, fuck, and I was one of the first people to have this damn figure. But yeah, he looks cool. The windswept cape, it works better in certain situations than in others, and that's also something I'm going to talk more about later. But as you can see, having him jump around and stuff, if you can pose him the right way and you have the right kind of stand, and you make sure you tighten it enough because the figure is fairly heavy, you'll be fine. He will sit, and you can pose him and make him look like he's going through some epic stuff. And that's what you want to do with him. The pistols are perfect. I have nothing to say about his pistols. Alistair is perfect. Nothing to say about Alistair. The fact that each thing is detailed so properly, like they didn't skimp on the details. Like if you look on the guns, like I said, look closely and look at all the things that have been, painted, tiny little details that have been rendered so that you can, truly say that this is Dante and that's Ebony and that's Ivory. When you get up close on Alistair, you'll notice that Alistair is two parts. He's the blade and then the, hilt and the handle. And it's pretty dope. The blade is painted a different way from the rest of the sword, so you have a complete difference between the two. It's almost like stone for the handle and blade, the blade is metal. But the details are so nice. And no, those sounds are not farts. Sorry, that's my chair. It's old. We need some WD-40. And I think I'll do that after this review. But I just love the accessories. I wish he came with maybe, if I was to be picky and ask for more and be greedy, I wish he came with Ifrit. Those gauntlets were the only thing in the game I used more than my guns. And in every version of Devil May Cry, I always go to the gauntlets or the boots or the whatever. It's Ifrit, freaking Gilgamesh in one game, and freaking Beowulf in the other game. You know what I mean? And I just love that weapon. I wish he had those. But what he has is perfect. It's the essence of the character. You don't really need too much else to really, drive the point home. And, it's just quality, Poses, he's easy to pose. The poses you put him in, he holds them. He's got very, I know this is the accessory part, and I'm talking too much about other stuff, but I'm about to get into articulation anyway, so I'll continue that thought right here. So, His articulation is good and tight. Everything holds the way it should hold. I'd like to start off by pointing out that his head is kind of like the SH Figuarts double, ball joint. The one at the top of the neck, one at the bottom of the neck. So, the head can move independently and the neck also can move independently. It's kind of dope when they do stuff like that because it gives you more freedom, and more posing options. And I really, really dig that. All right, so this is him relaxed as you can get him. His head movement is very simplistic. You have the double barbell or double ball socket joint, so he has a really good looking down, really good ability at looking up. There's really no issues with either of those things. Side to side works perfectly. Even tilt. You can tilt a little bit with the head, but you can tilt even more because of the neck. And since he's a tall, kind of skinny character, these proportions work. The long neck kind of works. So it makes him, more expressive in that kind of way. His arms have a lot of things going on with them. Lots of things hidden, but they move up this much. They are hindered because of the jacket. If you take the jacket off, you can go higher. There's a bend and swivel at the elbow, as well as a swivel at the bicep, which is, cool. I think it's redundant, but, a lot of companies, for some reason, feel the need to do this. Whatever. If the end result is this, I'm not going to complain. I still think it's redundant, though. He's got a cut at the wrist, so you can swivel. There's no real up and down, although it is kind of connected. There is kind of like a ball joint connection in there on one end, so you can kind of rotate his hands around, but you got to be careful because too much rotation will pop the hands off. Torso. He's got an ab crunch in there, but the vest kind of restricts the movement. It is there. If you take off the coat, it's even easier to use. But he has that, and I can't tell if he has a ball joint at the waist, but, legs go up this much. His pelvis is made of a really soft, pliable plastic, almost rubbery, so it gets out of the way with any movements that you need to do with his legs, especially at the hip. Just like Arnold, just like Stallone, just like many of the Predators. It's pretty dope design. He's got double jointed knees. There's also a swivel up at the thigh. It comes in really handy, and it's really well hidden because you can't even see the ball sockets that are up at or ball hinge that's up in the thigh. There is a swivel at his boot. He's got a boot hinge. I think they're ball jointed though, because he can do a whole bunch of stuff and there's nothing holding him back. And if you do put him standing with his legs out, outstretched, kind of like split, he will still maintain, a very flat stance. And that's what you want with these guys. You don't want them to have their feet twisted in all kind of weird ways like some of DC Collectibles and, a couple of the Marvel Legends, mainly the women. For some reason, they get funky-ass swivels. He has a butterfly joint in his shoulders, but the jacket and the vest hinder that greatly. It's less of an issue when you have the jacket off, because you can take off the jacket, he will still have the big sleeves, but I don't know. It's a strange little thing that I'm kind of happy they did, because it allows you to have him hold his sword better. He has a cut at the waist as well. Like I said, I couldn't tell if it was a ball joint or if it's just a cut. For now, I'm just going to say it's a cut. And because of the jacket and the vest, it doesn't really destroy the sculpt when you twist his waist as much as you can. So, I have two nitpicks. One, this is the peg on which you put his hands. And I think it's a small peg. I don't think it's going to break. It's made out of pretty good stuff. It's just really small, and not much of it is poking out, so it doesn't really pop into the hands properly to keep them secure. So you'll see them falling off a lot. The other thing is this freaking windswept coat. I would have preferred if they stitched a fucking coat for the guy. I would have preferred half the length of that coat and just having it, you know, hang down on the sides. I don't need this giant windswept shit. It like really weighs down your figure. I mean, like, I was lucky to get him to stay standing in the position that he's in right now in this image. It's the sole thing on this figure that bothers me the most. While I was taking pictures, he fell down like 50 times. I put him in a pose and then left, came back, and he had knocked down other stuff in the background. It's just too much, and I wish it was done differently. It doesn't completely take away from the figure, though. The bottom line is that we have a very well done figure at a price point that is insane. This is a $21 to $24 figure, which is, you know, roughly in the same price range as your average Marvel Legend. And look at the paint and the accessory count and even the articulation, and explain to me why a Marvel Legend could cost as much as this. It doesn't make sense. This is a far better value for you know, for your money and for what you get than any Marvel Legend. I don't care how many hands they put in the package. You're getting more here. I mean, better articulation, a way better sculpt, and better accessories that care and time was taken into making them feel, you know, substantial. Not just packaging a bunch of shit in a package so that you can say, oh, I could use this for someone else and I can't use it for the figure that I spent the $30 for, the $24 for, $21.99 for, or whatever absurd price is being asked of you online. This figure's not perfect. There are little things, like I said, the jacket being the biggest one. But, you know, a lot of you just put things on shelves and leave them there. So if that's the case, you make sure that that windswept coat is hitting the wall, you know, like a corner wall or something, so that it helps prop them up. And then if you do that, then you've got perfection. So anyway, I am STRYDENT. This has been my review of the NECA Devil May Cry Dante. I like it, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace outside.